All right, make.com. Today we completed the unit in the webhooks course on post requests. We set up basically a strict data structure for the webhook that didn't allow data to pass unless it met the data structure criteria. And we used Postman to test it a few times. And then we started the next unit on the webhook queue. And so the webhook queue is basically like a queue storing up the information sent to the webhook that has not yet been processed. So an interesting thing we were covering was the difference between scenario scheduling and triggers, and they seem the same to me, but they're not the same thing. So triggers are what start the scenario, right? They like trigger the start of the scenario, but scenario scheduling is like maybe when the scenario can even be triggered. Something along these lines. They're not the same thing. So instant triggers you can only have instant triggers if it's a webhook. And if you send information to a instant trigger, it's either going to run the scenario or it's going to store the information into the webhook queue, depending on the scenario scheduling. So you got instant trigger, and you also have polling trigger. Polling trigger, I think, is it happens at different intervals. I'm not exactly sure on the polling trigger. And then there's 3 scenario schedules. They were on demand, immediate, and I'm forgetting the third term, but it had to do with like regular intervals. So if you send an instant trigger or you send information to a webhook with an instant trigger and an on-demand schedule, essentially the webhook's going to store the information in the webhook queue until you click manually to start the scenario. If you send information to an instant trigger with an immediate schedule, it will just process the information and trigger the scenario instantly. If you send information to an instant trigger that is on that regular interval, it seems to me like it's going to get stored into the webhook queue until the schedule turn on of the scenario, and then it will get processed. If it's a polling trigger, on a schedule interval, I think it will request information at a given time. There is no polling and immediate. You cannot have an immediate schedule with a polling trigger. That makes sense, because that would be like brrr, it would like explode. Maybe I'm thinking of this wrong, but then if you have a polling trigger with an on-demand schedule, when you schedule the manually turn the scenario on, then it will request information or fetch information at that time. So it's a little shaky, but that's what we were going over today. So that's it for today. Talk to you guys later. See ya.